I'd now like to ask Makhudu Sefara, who is with the Sunday Times newspaper and is also SANAF's, that's the South African Editors Forum, and he's the chairperson of the SANAF Media Freedom Committee. Over to you, Makhudu. So nice to have you.
Thank you for the opportunity to allow us to share a few thoughts and ideas about the state of the media in South Africa. Firstly, I would like to say that the laws are in place. You guys, I suppose you guys would know that we had our democracy almost about 30 years ago. The process that we've had to undertake as a country was that media freedom laws or laws that encouraged media freedom needed to be put in place. And first off the block was the Constitution, and then a raft of other legislation that supported the work that we do. So as far as we are concerned in the media, we think that the laws are in place, and that's a good start. And secondly, we think that the courts, which happen to be a problem in a number of areas, are also able to do their work free of political interference, which is a plus for us. But we find that while the laws and the system, as it were, appear to favor media freedom, the actions of particular players in our democracy point in a different direction. So you would have people who unleash different types of attacks, some of which Rochelle has dealt with. Sadly, we still have physical attacks that are unleashed on journalists in our country. You know, one incident was in KwaZulu-Natal, where somebody went to report on a change in administration between politicians, and the mayor, who was supposed to leave office, who still had bodyguards, unleashed the bodyguards on the journalists. They punched the journalist in the face. They took their laptop, threw it on the ground, damaged their camera, and took their notebooks, the notebook, which was only returned after a police case was opened. There's other incidents that have happened elsewhere, you know, where somebody who was, you know, out reporting on volunteers who were filling potholes because government was not doing its work. When the officials in government found out that journalists are giving attention to these other people, you know, they then went there, instead of sorting out the service delivery problem, they then attacked the journalists for popularizing the work of somebody who's solving a particular problem. So essentially, what the picture that's emerging from our country is one where we, as the Editors Forum, would call, say, ministers and or people in strategic positions to our gatherings and have discussions with them about our concerns and about how media freedom is impacted by actions of certain players. And the ministers will agree with us and say, no, this is illegal. No, this type of thing should not be countenanced in a democracy, and so therefore must be condemned, you know, and pledge that they will help. However, their actions will prove to us that they disagree. Another challenge, in addition to what Rochelle indicated, that I think is a major impediment to media freedom is the rise in litigation. So where people, of course, realize that they can't just attack journalists, they just come up with all manner of things that try to keep journalists outside of court processes. Say somebody gets arrested for malfeasance or, you know, breaking one law or the other. When they go to court, they just at no cost to themselves, say to the prosecutor that they're not comfortable testifying in front of journalists, and then the prosecutor says to the presiding officer, the request from whoever is appearing before you, presiding officer, is that the media must be kicked out. What that does is that the media must then appoint a lawyer, consult with that lawyer, and the lawyer must launch an application which must be heard in court. And that whole process is really very costly. And for an organization like an editors forum that relies on donations here and subscriptions from other editors, where you have several incidents like that, the costs become quite prohibitive for quite a number of people. And perhaps just to throw in another example of impediments to media freedom, we've had incidents, I think 2, if not 3, in the last 6 months, where journalists have had to write stories and hide their names. And I think one of the journalists is in the Eastern Cape, where Rochelle is based, hide their names because some social movement that is agitating against foreigners and so on would then threaten the journalist and threaten to unleash violence against them. And so not only that, they then approached the family, and it has led to a situation where about 2 journalists that we've released statements on have had to leave their homes and go and hide somewhere, and where they are working or reporting about the social movements, remove their names or their bylines from their stories, because doing so elevates the risk of physical attack, not just on themselves, but also on their families too. And so I suppose if you look at this, in addition to what Rochelle has put on the table, a picture is emerging of a country that is embracing democratic means, a country that has the laws in place, that where you to have an interview with our president in any of your countries about media freedom in our country, he'll say, no, we have the laws in our country. The media is free to say whatever they want to say. But where you look at the content of the practice, you then find that there are certain things that happen that make it very difficult for journalists to do their work. So on paper, we are free in South Africa to do our work, but practically it's not yet uhuru, so to put it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Makhudu Sefara, for that very informative talk. And I think between you and Rochelle, I think you've educated all of us about the situation in South Africa, and in particular this disconnect between having good laws and rules and regulations in place and what happens in reality, because I think that's an experience all of us can identify with in some way or the other. So thank you very much for that.